everybody, it's Dr. Carmen Bryant. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. So to all the new subscribers, thank you so much for joining this tribe and finding something valuable that I have to say that can help you in your process of either recovery, discovery, and healing. And so thank you so much for all the emails. Thank you so much for all the requests for videos as well. So today I wanted to revisit a topic that I talked about before. Previously I talked about, it was a long time ago, I talked about post-traumatic stress and complex post-traumatic stress, but I wanted to kind of recap on that again for those of you that have been in narcissistic relationships or come out of narcissistic families, toxic families. And so you know that it's not all the time. Sometimes it's the parents. Sometimes it may not be the parents. Maybe it's the siblings. You have a sibling that is narcissistic, an uncle, aunt, grandparents that are narcissists, and then you leave out of that family. And then because your foundation has already been built, though it may not be comfortable to you, that's all you know. And so you gravitate right back into those. They set you as, it's like they toxically set you up for those type of relationships. That's all you know. And so that is, even though it's uncomfortable, that is your comfort zone. That's all you know. And so you go right back into these toxic relationships with narcissists, male and females alike. You may have, you end up giving birth to someone that develops narcissism. So now not only do you have a spouse or a loved one or a partner that has narcissism, now you have children that may have narcissism, and each one of them are always doing the exact same thing to include the kids. Then you have grandkids, and one of the grandkids has narcissism. Seems like it is really an epidemic, and before I start, let me also comment, Mr. Dane Cheney. I know we were looking at the percentile where it was stated that it's like 7% of the population, 6 or 7% of the population has has clinically narcissistic personality disorder, and someone commented that that's just clinical cases. Well, you have to think, when you have the APA or the association, the American the American Psychological Association, and the Psychiatric Association, that's what it is. But you have these associations that are reporting statistics. You have to remember they're reporting statistics based on clinical research, meaning that they actually diagnose and assess people. They sat down, diagnosed, and tested people, and they came up with the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder. And someone commented that the percentage is probably higher, and I totally agree with that. Yes, maybe the clinical diagnosis where people actually sat down and were tested came up with that small percentage, but I do actually agree that and believe that the percentage is way higher. Think about it. We have thousands of people on YouTube, and you guys are talking about partners and family members and siblings that for a fact, just listening to videos and educating yourself, that they had narcissistic personality disorder. Now, true enough, in a court of law or, dealing with professionals, people are going to say, well, you're not a professional. How do you diagnose that? You've been studying it long enough. You can pick up on the traits, the patterns, a lot of times we know the diagnosis of children when it comes to health or something like that before the doctor knows it, and you're telling them, and they testing them, because once you educate yourself, even though some of you are not in a position in a professional position to do diagnosis like that, you're getting educated and you know what you're dealing with. Now think about it. Those individuals that you were involved with, they didn't get clinically tested. A lot of them did not have diagnosis or clinically tested, and they're not going to do it. Not all narcissists are just going to participate in a research or a study. It's not going to happen. And so I do believe that the percentage is way higher than that. Just in the U.S. alone, I think the percentage is much higher. Now, having said that, you're coming from families that narcissistic parents, siblings, whatever. And so to distinguish the difference, like I did in the video before, between PTSD and complex PTSD, which is C-PTSD. PTSD is an event happening, that traumatizes you. Basically, the fear of death, you've been raped, you've been beaten, almost killed, witnessed someone being killed in front of you, but that terror, that shock, that, where you end up, the result of it after like 6 months period of time, usually within a 6 month period of time is when, if the symptoms last up to 6 months and beyond, then you classify that or clinically is diagnosed as PTSD. Flashbacks, having flashbacks like you're actually back in the event. People talking to you, you thinking that you're actually back in that event. Depersonalization or derealization, which is called dissociation, in which, something happens and you totally dissociate or you disassociate it, and it feels like you're out of your body, or you're watching a dream, or you're watching this happen in slow motion. Nightmares about the event, constant nightmares. You can't sleep, sleeping problems where, whatever has happened to you may have happened at night. So you are afraid to go to sleep at night. And so you have sleep problems because you try to sleep in the day and you have to work during the day. So a lot of you have sleep issues, physical problems, hypervigilance. You're always nervous, always, and you shock very easily. You're startled very easily. People that make sure that they're always in a place where their back is against the wall so they can see. Now, some of us are just like that. A lot of military are just like that, but some people who have been traumatized are like that. People say something and you're triggered very easily because it reminds you, that reminds me. So, and some of you may not have PTSD. Some of you may have general anxiety disorder, panic disorders. You're in a quiet room and I heard a lot of people say this before, there's nothing going on. I'm sitting in a quiet room or sitting and watching television. All of a sudden I have a panic attack like I'm having a heart attack. Well, you know what? Quiet could be the trigger. Because remember, as I said before in another video just recently, was, quiet could actually have been used as a weapon against you. Just like in a horror movie, you have two different types. One where the music leads up into the terror, into the shock. They're building the climax in the movie and the music lets you know something is about to happen. And then you have those where it's perfectly silent and all of a sudden the person turns around and it shocks you. Now, imagine you sitting in the movie for a minute and remember that feeling of, you have that feeling. Imagine a person having that feeling all the time. And then that narcissist creating that environment all the time. So anytime you come home all day long, you're always like that, like you're in the movies, like you're being shot. You're always like that. They keep an environment filled with anxiety. The atmosphere is thick with anxiety. They never allow you to stabilize or for it because it's used as a weapon. And so imagine going through that every day. That's complex PTSD, meaning you're exposed to that traumatic event. You're exposed to it on a daily basis, every day, to a point where your body is so accustomed to it that you are afraid of peace and quiet. And so you constantly live your life in anxiety. Some people just nervous. I've seen people who talk to me, their hands are constantly shaking. It's like they have vibrations all in their body and you can see it in their hands. People are just afraid, don't even know why. Now, being a clinician, one of the things that I know when people come in and you're dealing with anxiety is that yes, we're taught clinically and even with med providers is to treat the symptoms. And so, and I don't knock it because a lot of you guys are also therapists. And so EMDR is used a lot of times with and look it up. EMDR or biofeedback, which my colleague who used to own the business prior to me, she's used EMDR and biofeedback, where it's teaching the brain how to relax and how to ground yourself, but it's teaching the brain how to relax and it's kind of retraining the brain, and it is very, very effective. So you're treating the symptoms, grounding, meditation, relaxation technique, breathing to get the oxygen back in, to calm yourself down, where you're treating the symptoms. Now, for me, I like to hit the root. And I'm going to use this. It's going to be humorous because some of you guys are already experiencing the anxiety just talking about it. So I'm going to add some humor in there. So you guys ready? So think about for a minute, you have a person that has bad breath and you put gum in their mouth. You give them gum. Well, you don't put it in there, but you give them gum. Now their breath smells like minted poop. That was a good one. But now, but no matter how many times they put gum in their mouth, and I've experienced this in the military, all the thousands of soldiers that I've met, but you give them gum, but no matter how much gum you give them, it just smells like fresh smelling poop, septic tank, sewage. You met those people before? And really what you need to do is go to a doctor or a dentist to find out what the root of that problem is. Because you can keep treating the symptom, brushing your teeth, putting gum in your mouth, always making sure there's gum in your mouth, but it's just foul gum. It's stink gum now. The gum even stinks, But really the root of the problem is halitosis. Something is going on in the intestines. So really, it's not a breath issue. There's something health-wise going on in the stomach. Something going on with the bacteria in the stomach. Halitosis, something going on with the intestines. It could be a digestive issue, could be an intestinal issue. And so when they go to the problem, to the root of the problem, fix the root of the problem, the breath, the breath is the symptoms letting you know that there's a deeper problem. What about people that breath stink and the dentist tells them you have halitosis, meaning that they don't go in and get regular cleanings. They literally have to get, when they have cleanings, they literally have to get their gums cut, peeled up, and they have to get underneath there to clean it because it is a disorder. And so they have to get special attention to get that taken care of so that their breath, because that can ruin their teeth. So even in counseling, the way that I think of it, and this is for a lot of you counselors, the way that I think of it is we can treat, most insurance companies don't like to do long-term counseling, which, is unfair in certain cases because they don't like spending that much money, but is unfair in certain cases, even though they have like intensive inpatient counseling, like at the VA, because I'm also contracted with the VA, but they have like intensive inpatient treatment for those with PTSD, and then intensive outpatient treatment and groups and things like that to help. But I always think, and I always remember that I use a lot of psychoeducation. And psychoeducation, though we are helping you temporarily to help you manage those symptoms, because you're managing symptoms. You're not fixing the symptoms, because you can't fix a symptom, because a symptom is associated to something deeper than that. And so you can manage the symptoms, which is good. That's what therapists do, help you manage symptoms. If it's a lifelong problem of complex post-traumatic stress, and on a daily basis you're dealing with anxiety, though I may give you the tools to help you manage, or for those of you to get the tools to manage that, grounding, stopping and breathing, counting, thinking about the trigger, but really, in all honesty, to get history, to understand the root of the issue. Where does this come from? People that get panic attacks and I've helped people. I deal with a lot of soldiers that come in who have severe PTSD, because a lot of our soldiers and a lot of my comrades are OIF, OEF, soldiers have come from Saudi. They did the Saudi campaigns. They did the Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, Afghanistan deployments. And a lot of them have seen horrific things. I allow them to talk about it while they're in counseling. And as they're talking about it, I'm getting a picture of the root of the issues. Now, of course, I have to connect them with med providers to help them with the medication. And the medication, you should always, if a person is on medication, they should be in counseling. And med providers also say that we're not going to just give you medication, because medication is not a long-term fix. You should be getting counseling at the same time so that you can work on the problem that creates the symptoms. And for me, the way that I think is, and a lot of other people, you got to get to the root of the problem. And so as you begin to if you provide them with psychoeducation, showing them, connecting the triggers with the events, showing them or educating them how the body responds to certain things, especially like some of you guys sitting in perfect quiet and you're having panic attacks and don't know why. Well, you have to remember that if you were in a narcissistic, I was going to say psychopathic family, but if some of you guys were in a narcissistic family where their sibling, whether they always made sure they maintain control, and fear became their weapon. And so they see how you react and respond to fear. And some of the fear is irrational fear. But they used it because, with a child, especially with a child doesn't know what is irrational fear and what's rational fear, what is normal type of fear, like, having stage fright, versus I live in an environment that is always filled with anxiety and screaming and yelling, and how much screaming and yelling, and you never know when someone's gonna bust in my door, or when I'm gonna get screamed at. I don't know from one day to another what my environment is going to be like. And so they have narcissists feel that environment and created their own little nasty space to maintain control by using fear. Fear is one of the greatest weapons used by the narcissist to maintain control over their prey. If you think about all the relationships you've been in, some of them were not physically abusive. So it's very hard to get people to understand what you've been through because of the fact that they use fear tactics. Everything was a fear tactic. You come and then you talk too much a lot of times. So when we meet people and we talk to people, whether it's friends, whether it's a potential partner, a date, a lot of times we end up telling too much information, and they use that information to figure out how to implement fear. And fear for some people is the fear of abandonment, the fear of rejection, the fear of loss of things, the fear of being harmed, the fear of kids, something happened to. They'll use all that to maintain control because they know that if I implement this fear and this is what you fear, I can get you to do what I want you to do. Imagine people that, like with Stockholm syndrome, the purpose of it was the person not falling in love. Well, they say falling in love with the perpetrator, or falling in love with the person that was holding them hostage, but it is a coping mechanism. You are so afraid of dying that you are willing to just submit to the person that has the power to kill you. And so you submit and you do whatever they ask you to do, to even commit crimes along with them, as a survival technique, as a survival mechanism, as a coping mechanism. So your mind, it doesn't matter. You now protect this villain, this individual that is doing so much harm, because this person has the power to kill you, the power to do, whatever it is, make you homeless, leave you, whatever. And if your fear is so intense in these areas you have been set up, this is where they implement that fear. And then, a lot of you, anxiety disorder, major depression, post-traumatic stress, complex post-traumatic. Some of you had the experience with the family you have post-traumatic, but even in a family, this is a daily thing. It's complex post-traumatic stress. Some of you guys are still in the situation, so you can't say it's post-traumatic stress because it's not just a one-time event. This is an event that keeps happening every day. For a person to live in an environment like that, you are filled and riddled with anxiety. PTSD is classified under an anxiety disorder. What is anxiety? Fear. Deep-rooted, horrific fear, to a point where it terrorizes you, where it gets to a point where not even just regular fear is terror. After fear comes terror. And some people that sit in counseling, a lot of you who are counselors in the helping field like that, some of their fear is literally irrational, and in your mind, you're thinking like, why would you fear that? Why? Because as a child, it was made to be a big monster. And in actuality, it's a little thing, but this little thing has been created to be a big thing, and it grew into a big thing in your mind the more it was cultivated. And not only was it cultivated by family, it was cultivated by the people you were dating, the people that you were, around that have this disorder, your children, the person you were dating, your partner, whoever. And when you keep feeding a fire, the fire just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But I encourage each and every one of you, those of you that know that you're suffering from anxiety disorders, general anxiety, major depression, major depressive disorder is usually associated with what I'm saying, let me back up. Normally a person that gets a post-traumatic stress or PTSD diagnosis usually also has, always has major depressive disorder as well, whether it's moderate, mild, or severe. Majority of people that have post-traumatic stress disorder, and I have not yet seen any difference. So that's why I say majority of the people, especially the ones that I have done diagnosis on, PTSD also follows with major depressive disorder. And then also with other personality disorder, maybe like paranoid personality disorder, or for some people, borderline personality disorder, because it started off in youth. And so, yes, a lot of times, when you're looking at someone that has post-traumatic stress, be prepared because they also have major depressive disorder. That's a part of it's a part of the diagnosis. Major depression, anxiety, fear. Anxiety is fear. Flashbacks. Dissociation, because your mind dissociate in order for you to be able to function, afterwards. So the way that you have learned to operate in life is to dissociate. And so some people dissociate from their reality, meaning that they go to sleep, they'll take medications that causes them to be kind of not delusional, but kind of high. causes them to be high, drug and alcohol, causes a person to dissociate away from their pain. They don't feel the pain. And the same brain receptors that perceive physical pain are the same same receptors in your brain that perceives emotional pain. So emotional pain and physical pain can have the exact same feeling, because emotional pain can be very severe where you can feel it. It manifests physically and you can feel it. Think about the panic attacks where your body is hurting, your chest is hurting, you can barely breathe as if you were hitting the stomach or something, and it feels like you've been hitting the stomach. You physically begin to have symptoms of that anxiety. That's how bad it can get. So hopefully that helped you guys a little bit. I wanted to just address that, for some of you guys that are going through this. My biggest recommendation is always I am a counselor. I advocate counseling because I see, I'm a lot of us that are in the field, each one of us have our own unique style, have our own personalities. We have our own way of what we do and how we do what we do. But I think, number one, counseling, mental health counseling is very effective. It does have a stigma because a lot of times, especially like, for example, in the Black community with men, and a lot of men, don't want to come into counseling because it's almost like a weakness. I can handle it. I'm not crazy. I don't need a shrink, and we're not shrinks. We're not shamans. We're not what are they called? Whatever, voodoo priests or whatever. That's not what we are. We're not shrinks. We don't shrink ahead. We don't do that. So the shrink, I don't know where that term came from. I have to go look it up. But we're not shrinks. But we, it is talk therapy. And just like you need medical care, you also need mental health care because your mind is very powerful. Your mind has a lot of power over your body. The way that your body is affected is a lot of times through your mind. And the more you go through this, the more anxiety, the more your body begins to break down. That's why a lot of people get upset when the doctor says you need to go see a therapist. Oh, so you saying it's all in my mind? It's not true? Well, sometimes they don't know how to articulate it properly, but a lot of times the symptoms that you're having are real. They are manifesting physically because it's coming from the trauma or the anxiety or the pressure in your mind. And so, yes, a lot of times doctors may not articulate it properly because doctors are about symptoms and finding the problem. And if they cannot find anything physically wrong with you, you know that no matter what you say, I know something is wrong. And the doctor's like, medically, we cannot find anything. Maybe you need to go to a therapist because you do have things like conversion disorders. You do have mental disorders, or just like major depression can manifest, and it could be a thyroid issue. So it could be a medical problem. Once they treat the thyroid, the major depression goes away. For men who have low testosterone, and you don't realize you have a problem with testosterone, and you experience severe depression and maybe anxiety. But when they begin to treat you for the testosterone problem, the depression goes away. So each one of them is connected to each other. Sometimes we're like, okay, I don't think this is a mental health problem. Go and get blood work done first to see if you have a low vitamin D. If you have low vitamin D, it manifests in major depression. You get the vitamin D back up, the depression goes away. Thyroid problems, you treat the thyroid problem by putting them on thyroid medication or having the thyroid removed and putting them on medication, the depression goes away. Men that are being treated for low testosterone, you may see the depression go away. So physical and mental are very closely related. And a lot of people do not want to come into therapy because I don't have a problem. I'm not crazy. So therapy is now associated with you being crazy. And that's not true. And I had a lot of men that have come in here and said, I'm glad I made this decision. It's not as bad as I thought it was. Too much stigma on counseling. That doesn't mean you're crazy. Sometimes you need a neutral person that doesn't know you, not understand, but doesn't know you, to sit down and talk to you and point some things out. You don't go to family for counseling. We keep this in the family. I'm not going to go to therapy. I'm going to talk to my family. Your family's biased. They know your history. They know everything about you. So they're not going to really be biased when they're giving you, unbiased. They're biased, and you want someone that's unbiased, to be able to see things, that's not emotionally attached to you, to be able to tell you some information that maybe you may not want to hear. But I always advocate counseling. There's counseling to get yourself back on track. Men, you too. Men, you too. Do not be afraid to utilize counseling. If you can't get, go to Psychology Today. You can look up counselors in your area if you have insurance. And if those of you that do not want to leave the home at this particular time because you're struggling with that, that's why I always advocate the sponsored link that I have, which is betterhelp.com/Dr. Carmen. You click on the link, and by using my link, you get a 10% discount. If you are having financial difficulties, they do provide grants. Whatever possible way that they can help you to get into counseling. It is a nominal fee, so you will pay, because you can't expect everything in life to be free. Everything in life is not free, and I understand that everybody's in a different financial bracket. I understand that, but you know what? A lot of times people will invest their money in things that they want to invest in, but not things that they need to invest in. You can go shopping and spend $100, $200 on clothes, but you don't want to spend like a certain amount of money on getting counseling that is at an affordable rate, when really it doesn't matter how much you shop. Your mind is still messed up from the trauma that you've been through, and you have problems with relationships. So now you sexy, you looking all good and stuff, going to the gym with your six-pack and your tight, powerful buns, and your pretty Botox face and everything, that you on the inside, the aesthetics look wonderful, but the inside is all messed up. You can't connect with people. What's wrong with me? I know I'm a beautiful woman, or I'm a handsome guy. What's wrong with me? On the inside, you mush, and you need to get that taken. Why do I keep attracting the same type of people? Because you need to look at on the inside first before you try to connect to people. And I advocate counseling. I'm telling you guys, get some type of counseling. At this particular time, I am not accepting clients on BetterHelp because my books are full. I do have still a few slots because usually I'm not doing long-term coaching with a lot of people. So a lot of you are kind of checking in once or twice, and I love it. You guys are pretty much, a lot of you guys are on the road. You just need somebody to kind of coach you and keep you going in that direction. And so I am still offering discounts because it's working pretty good. So I'm still offering discounts. Some of you guys have contacted me, and my slots fill up very fast. So if you ask me, to do coaching and I reach back out to you to try to secure a spot, if you don't answer right away, someone else is waiting to take that slot. So I can't just hold it and you don't respond back to me, and then, for me to respond back to you is already difficult because my phone rings all day and I have clients coming in and out. And so, it's not to make you feel, try to slight you or get you away from me, but, it's kind of hard because there are a lot of people that want it, so if you want it and you contact me, be prepared to, make the appointment. I give you the information. If not, I kind of have to, and sometimes it makes it hard for me, for you to get in with me because of the response time, but I'm telling you, I advocate for counseling. Get into counseling. Also, if you have not already, please subscribe to my channel. It's Dr. Carmen Bryant, Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. I have 2 Facebook pages. One is my professional Facebook page, which I also share the videos on. And usually when I go on live, it works better because I have more on the professional page. And then I usually post it over to the other, my book page. And it is Psychological Health Consultants and Services. A lot of times on that page, though, I don't post like personal pictures of me out and about, or with family and everything, because of the fact that I usually use that on my book site. The book Facebook site is Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. And so subscribe to both of them because I usually come live on one of them because it works better on the other one. And then I just post the video over on the other one so you guys can go back and see it. And so some of you that may not be getting the alert, you might be on my Overcoming Narcissist Abuse site on my Facebook page, but if you also go and subscribe or hit the like on my professional one, which is Psychological Health Consultants and Services. Also, if you have not already, please go and check out my book. It is Unmasking the Illusion of Perfection. And it is on Barnes & Noble and on Amazon. I'm currently working on my next book, which will go more in detail. I gave you the stories in this book. These are real stories of real people. For those of you that are not believers, I provide encouragement, biblical encouragement for you. For most of you that are not believers, look at the principles, look at the stories of the people, and look at the principles of the book. And a lot of you have said that though I'm not a believer, I saw myself in the book because these are real people that had real experiences, people that were in professionals who were embarrassed. How did they ended up getting to this point? People that have had children and their children were abused and they didn't realize how their children, they couldn't get out. They didn't know how to get out. They had homicidal, suicidal thoughts, how the parents groomed them and the parents were narcissists and the stuff that was said to cause them to be like a perpetual victim, over and over again until they decide to leave, how the narcissist reacted when they knew that they were leaving. So these are real stories of real people. So these are real people in the book. Names have been changed to provide privacy for the people, but at the same time, these are real people in these stories, and you will find yourself. Now, the editor, I did check when you're reading over a book over and over and over again, and when the editor goes and makes, corrections, and you look and you've been looking over, sometimes you miss stuff. And so there are some stuff in the book. There are some typos or grammatical errors in the book, and so I apologize for that. But you can still get the principle out of the book. You still get the point out of the book, and eventually I'll go have it re-edited and everything. But just to get the book out there to you guys. But I am working on my second book. It takes a little time because it takes a little research, so to put the stuff together. But I am working on my second book. Also, for those of you, my mentor also talks about narcissist abuse, and she's on the YouTube channel is Helen Sadler, Destiny Helper, and she provides you with information on narcissist abuse from a biblical and spiritual perspective. And, she respects those that have other belief systems. She lets you know that this is her belief and this is how she believes, but she still talks about it from a spiritual perspective and give you biblical principles dealing with narcissist abuse and goes in depth with it. Very, very good teachings. Don't miss it. Go subscribe to her channel. It is Helen Sadler, Destiny Helper. And please subscribe to her channel. Make sure you share these videos. Whether you like me or not, doesn't matter, but you can save somebody's life. Whether you like, her or not, it doesn't matter. You can save somebody's life. Do it for someone else. Share the videos because you never know who's watching these videos. Some people, don't register because they don't want people to know that they're on there and they don't want to leave a trail. And so a lot of people that I talk to are actually not registered or subscribed to the channel. They watch it, faithfully and have emailed me. There are people that are being held hostage right now as we speak that don't disclose that information. They've given me that information, but they haven't told me who they are, where they are, and so there's nothing I can do to assist or get resources because all I know is that they're literally being held hostage in their own home. And the only freedom and peace of mind that they have is when these videos pop up. So you don't know who you're helping. You don't know who's watching these videos that really can't speak or are afraid or operating in fear and is unable to reach out or say anything at this particular time. But the videos is building them up, building them up. And there are other people out there like Associate Direct, Quinn Holiday, Angie Atkinson is still there, Melanie Tonya Evans, Dr. Ramani, Dr. Les Carter, all these people. Who else is out there? There's a lot of people. Little Shaman, she's really good. There's a lot of people out there that is doing the work and getting you the information. And remember, I said a lot of times in order to, you can work on the symptoms all you want to. So you can work on the stank breath, but if the stank breath is chronic, something else is going on. If my breath stinks and I put gum in my mouth to go brush my teeth, that should eliminate the problem. Oh, okay, it was something that I ate. But if the problem is chronic and something is going on, then something else is going on besides just the symptoms in my mouth. Something could be going on with my stomach, my intestine. I could be having some health issues. Certain medications that you take, can cause, even body odor. But there is a root, and so even with people that are dealing with narcissism and relationships like that, there's a root. And when you provide education, you begin to educate yourself, you begin to understand that you're not the problem. And a lot of people struggle with, am I the narcissist? Am I the narcissist? And you become very anxious about being the narcissist. Narcissists don't become anxious about being a narcissist. Narcissists will deny being a narcissist. Now, they'll sit down and tell you, you could talk to them about the symptoms and how they are, and they'll tell you, as a matter of fact, it's in the book. They'll tell you, I know I'm manipulative, I know I'm this, I know I'm that, I know I do this all the time. They recognize the behavior, but they don't recognize the diagnosis. They don't believe that they are narcissistic. They'll look at everybody else and pick out, because a lot of people have narcissistic traits. And so they'll look and they'll pick out from the videos all the stuff that someone else is, but they don't recognize that that's who they are. And so a narcissist doesn't get anxious about, I'm a narcissist, because they don't believe it. That's too much for them. No, I'm not. You are, but I'm not. I recognize this behavior and everything, but does not classify me as a narcissist. And you're looking like, you do know that you're a narcissist. It's not even that you are a narcissist. You have narcissistic personality disorder. You're not a doctor. You can't diagnose anything. If it walks like a duck, like the military said, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. It's not a dog. Dogs don't quack. And if a dog quacks, something is wrong. Go look at the root of the problem. Maybe it's not a dog, right? So thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate you guys always tuning in. I'm so honored. Thank you for being patient with me as I try to get, all my paperwork done. Because there's some transitionings that are happening this year, and so I'm very focused on getting this done. And when I say paperwork, a lot of times it's paperwork to transition to, a bigger place where you guys have more access to more people. So I'm going to be building my staff, but in order to build a staff, you need to build a foundation. And so I'm building a foundation, and I am expanding my business, and so that requires a lot of concentration and a lot of work. And so that is what keeps me off camera a lot of times. But I really appreciate you guys not going anywhere, still hanging in there with with me, and I'm making sure that you guys know that I'm accountable to you guys, because you guys have supported me for almost, this year, I think in October, it'd be 2 years. And a lot of you have been with me since I first started, and I had like 10 subscribers. And you guys have been there. You watched me grow, and I've heard stories about you guys growing. And so I am so honored and so appreciative. You have no idea how appreciative I am, because a lot of times, sometimes you do things and you really don't know how effective you are until people start reporting back to you and telling you, and it really gives you that drive to keep doing what you're doing. And sometimes people are hurting themselves. Sometimes people are tired themselves, and so, life does not stop. Life does not stop. Things happen all day long, every day, to include my phone ringing all day, but life happens. We're human beings. We get tired before we get on camera. But because of you guys, and because of the fact that you guys, give me feedback, it really, even in my tired moments, I still think about you guys and want to come. And that's what keeps me going. That really is what keeps me going. And I really appreciate all the feedback. Don't stop the feedback. Even if sometimes I can't respond to you, a lot of times I do see your comments. I just don't have time to respond back to you. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I appreciate you. And so when you make comments, do know that a lot of times I do see all your comments. And I do, a lot of times I just can't respond to everybody, because sometimes I may be on my way to the bathroom scrolling through the phone, and I can see, and I'm like, oh, you guys made my day. Or even when you guys crack jokes on there, I'm like, oh my gosh. Sometimes I even stop to say, you just made my day. And so don't stop, and I appreciate it. Share the videos, okay? And you guys, as always, go and be great.